Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoor Cameraman Experience. I am Jess DiLorenzo with my co-host Jake Latondras, and we are Latondras Media Collective. How you doing, Jake?
I'm good, Jess. How about yourself? Haven't
I'm
haven't
doing
talked to you in a
good.
while.
Oh, it's been like a week.
Yeah, that's a while for us.
I know we've been busy. Labor Day was nuts, just family stuff and having fun, and then trying to work over the non-working holiday, the usual.
Yeah, my sister came into town from Florida and she brought her son, Luke, my 17-year-old nephew, who is a very talented photographer himself. And he came out here to look at CU Boulder and Colorado State University because he's a senior in high school. And I think we may have sold him on it. So there's a great
Nice.
chance that my nephew's going to be here going to school and hopefully give me some help
Yeah,
as a
there you go.
substitute.
You have an
Yeah,
automatic intern.
yeah, exactly.
Nice. Um, Yeah, nothing too new around here. Just it's starting to look a little bit like fall. We were talking earlier, the geese are flying over, the deer are hardening up, just the
I
usual
think I
stuff.
think things are, they're starting to get antsy. It's time. I don't know where, how it is there. I think you may be a little bit higher in latitude than me,
Latitude.
but our altitude is a bit higher here,
Mhm.
and we're definitely, I mean, trees are starting to change. What is today? September 4th. We're about literally 10 days from like the aspens exploding up in the mountains and the elk, going crazy screaming during the rut. So it's here. It's time.
Nice. Well, we have a good show today, but first we want to mention definitely head over if you haven't yet to our YouTube channel. You can just type in youtube.com/outdoor cameraman experience. We put all of our episodes almost immediately up afterwards, so you can watch them endlessly over and over and over and catch shows that you missed. So they're all there, and also tutorials. We have been putting up a couple of those here and there, and there'll be some new ones coming down the pipeline as we get busy in fall and take a week off here and there. And then we've got the decals going out still. So if you still want them, we still have a whole bunch. So
Yeah, and give
message
us
us.
feedback. Any kinds of shows, concepts, ideas, tutorials, anything that you want to know about and you want us to address, please bring it up in private messages or even, on our pages.
Yep,
So
comment away.
so yeah, we love the feedback.
So today we have our first female professional photographer guest.
Go
Yay!
estrogen, go estrogen.
We have Jess McGlothlin. She's based out of Missoula. She's a Montana native. She's an international award-winning freelance photographer. She has been featured in shows all the way from the U.S. to Germany and Israel. She works a lot in the fly fishing industry, adventure industry, travel photography. She also works for Onyx Maps as of recently, which is awesome. And she photographs everything. Like I said, I mean, you can look through her portfolio and it's epic. She's got fly fishing, rodeos, something about survival. We have to ask her about that one. Survival. What did she say? Survival
she
trainings
gets
in remote areas. She has photographed. So I want to know what that's about. So
she
let's.
gets with it. I mean, you can tell just by looking at her imagery that she gets down, gets dirty, and gets with it. She does it the right way.
All right. So without further ado, let's bring Jess McGlothlin on. Welcome
Morning,
to the
guys.
show. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for
Good.
joining us today.
Hey,
Hi,
thanks for
Jess.
having me. Hey, Jake, how's it going?
It's the Jess, and Jake show today.
We've got all the J's.
Nice.
Uh, yeah. No, it'll work out well. My brother's name is Jake, and I'm Jess, so I feel very at
Oh,
home.
wow.
This is
We should
comfortable.
have had him
Yeah,
on here too. It could be the Jake show.
There we go. Oh, we could have doubled
definitely.
it. Yeah. I know Jake pretty well. And actually, that's kind of how I stumbled upon you a few years ago and following your photography as well through your brother Jake, who's also a really good photographer. You guys must have it in the genes.
I guess we have fun with it for sure. It's helpful to have family members where I can drag him out and go shoot some stuff.
Nice. Yeah, that's
Does
what I
your
do
is
with
your
my husband
family?
too, drag him around.
Yeah, definitely drag him around.
Do you have art in your family background?
Not at all, actually. My mom was a teacher, a foreign language teacher, actually, and my dad was a kind of small town physician up here in Montana. So I'm not quite sure where the photography writing thing came from, but it came out pretty strongly in both Jake and I. So it works out.
Then not only are you a photographer, you're also a freelance writer as well, published, and you do writing and things like that for Onyx now as well.
Yeah, that's right. So my freelance business ends up being about half and half writing, half photography. I think editors like it. I'm cheap to send out into the field instead of one person they can just send to, especially to some of these weird remote shoots. It's easy and it's coherent from a storytelling angle as well. And then I guess end of June, it seems like it's been much longer. I joined the team here at Onyx in Missoula. So doing mostly writing for them, but a bit of photography as well. So everything's kind of all over the place right now, which is the way I like it. I get bored very easily. So busy's good.
Yeah, my motto is busy's always better than bored. So I always got like my hands in all sorts of pots and doing all sorts of weird things.
You're always all over the place. I feel like you're busy and getting it done. So it's fun to watch. Yeah.
But it keeps things interesting, and it seems like you're kind of on the same wavelength as well. So that's
absolutely
cool.
So Jess Mac. Oops, I was going to say I was going to take a step back and just kind of ask you how you got your photography and writing career started.
Definitely, it's kind of a funky story. I've been doing it now professionally for about 10 years. And when I was, I guess, 19 or 20, there was a proposal to put a hydroelectric dam just below Quake Lake on the Upper Madison here in Montana, close to West Yellowstone. And I was living at Bozeman in the time, actually working in a Sportsman's Warehouse selling shoes. So on the retail side of the industry, and kind of got pissed off and said, hey, I want to see what I can do to learn more about what's happening and also write about it. I'd always written casually. And so it was kind of this young 19-year-old. I think the only reason I got the interviews with the dam company was the fact that they thought I was a college kid who didn't really know anything, which was, I didn't really know anything. I wasn't a college kid, so they were half right. But got the story, and American Angler very kindly agreed to run it, which was fantastic. They were my first national publication, but we needed some site photographs to go with it. So I pulled together my life savings and bought a camera, and then saw that, hey, these two kind of gel well together. And it spiraled from there, I guess. It's kind of continued to grow and expand, and it's fun. I never know what's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, you're all over the place. I think this year you've been, I mean, how many places have you been just this year alone?
You know, it's been a busy year, especially with kind of the transition onto Onyx. I had a good trip to the Middle East, to Jordan this May. That was fantastic. I was down doing some shooting for Jordan Tourism and also Cool, the pant brand. And then kind of ran around. Those photos look familiar. Yeah. There we go. There's Jordan. Yeah, so that's in the side of Petra. We were able to walk in kind of a back route, which was nice, and see this is the monastery, which coming from the main direction is like 950 steps up. The way we hiked in, it was a long, long hike in with a lot of up and down, but then we got to go down the 950 steps while everyone else was climbing up. So that was really gratifying. And we also, this was the night after a really big sandstorm. So we made it there just in time to get some fun light.
Wow, that is amazing.
Did you have any like special access or anything to get in there? Because I know a lot of times, a lot of these tourist destinations where you can get photos, it looks like deserted, but you have to wait for like specific time slots to take these epic images without getting all the tourists.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we were really lucky working with Jordan Tourism. They obviously kind of have the free reign of their country. And they were able to set us up with a Bedouin guide. We camped out in the desert one night and then did this hike in the back route, which was great because obviously it's very hot there. We started very early and got in much of the hike before it was too brutal. And also beat many of the tourists. You see this photo a lot and it'll be 200 people stacked in front of that building. So it was really cool to see it without that. But earlier on in that trip, we were actually in the northern part of the country near Syria and documenting some of the refugees coming across and kind of how they're settling in Jordan. So it was a busy trip. I think I was only there about a week. I would have loved to stay for 2 months, but really cool to see a part of the world I had no idea about. And I'm super keen to go back.
That's beautiful.
There's an area, I think it's in northern Jordan. Some old friends of mine that work for the North Face, Mark Sanat, and then I think he was with Raynon Ozturk and Jimmy Chin.
Right.
They did a video a few years ago, and is it the Aneti or Aneti? There's some there's like some arches, some sandstone arches that had developed there, and they went and climbed. They were the first people to climb them. And when I saw that whole journal and portfolio and video that came out of there that those guys at Camp 4 Collective made, I was really intrigued with Jordan. So to know that you went there is really interesting. Did you feel comfortable there during your visit?
I did. I was actually really surprised. I felt more comfortable there than I have a lot of times in like LA or New York.
Sure.
Overall, folks are very welcoming, and it varies. I mean, you get in some of the more traditional communities, and like I would wear a scarf just to not cause issues. You know how it is wandering around with two very big cameras around your neck. You're not exactly inconspicuous, so I try and limit other issues where they might occur. But folks were awesome. At one point, we had fairly heavy security in certain parts of the country, and these soldiers were just fantastic and wanted to talk politics and recipes, just random things. And their English wasn't great, and I speak no Arabic, but it was a fantastic experience. I would wholeheartedly recommend it.
Nice.
So, yeah.
What kind of challenges as far as getting your gear there, especially dealing, you said there's a sandstorm right beforehand. Was there any kind of like?
Oh, the logistics are interesting. I have really bad luck coming through customs in various international airports with gear, apparently. I always get pulled aside, and we run through this. And Jake, I'm sure you have stories as well of traveling with gear, and you have your carnet, you have your paperwork, you have everything, but it still is an issue. Sometimes I get off giving a fake phone number. That's worked a couple times. But often it's just sitting down and being really patient with folks. So coming into Jordan, we were actually lucky that Jordan Tourism had organized someone to meet me and go with me through customs. So it was kind of a no-brainer. It was super relaxed. It was about 1 a.m., but it was super relaxed and very easy. And I'm forever grateful for that. But, the sandstorm and other issues, it's basically keeping gear sealed up and secure. I'm a big fan of gaffer tape on my cameras. If I'm traveling to certain parts of the world where I know it's really misty or dusty, I did a shoot in the Amazon last year, and I basically had my cameras buddy taped together by the end of it. But they came through, and I took them in to be cleaned, and the guy was like, "You're good. I don't need to do anything." So I'm very much preventative care with my cameras.
That's sandstorm a great tip, actually. For those of you that don't know what gaff tape is, it's a one side sticky tape, very similar to masking tape, but it peels, it sticks and peels, so there's no sticky residual on your gear, and it's something that's heavily used in the filming and photography world. So that's what gaff tape is.
It's fantastic stuff. And even if you're traveling to a place where you're worried about gear security, covering logos. I mean, we all see it. A lot of camera companies, of course, want their logo to be everywhere. So it's in white against a black camera, or it's in red. And cutting little squares out and covering your logos and just making your gear look a bit beat up goes a long way. Right. I know mine's to the point now where I'm like, yeah, we're good. But if you ever get new gear and want it to kind of settle in nicely,
I'm always like, oh, camera gear is an investment. I can always resell this. Yeah, right. No one's buying my stuff.
I take care of mine. I'm like, don't touch my gear. Do not touch my camera.
I'm protective, but it's still like my camera insurance people, I think, loathe me at this point. They're really good to work with, but they see me coming and they're like, oh, where have you been? So it's good. I think gear care is a big part of it, because if we get halfway around the world and our gear doesn't work, that's going to be a very unhappy client. So,
without question, what do you carry your gear in when you travel, say abroad? What do you pack your gear in? That's one of the probably most frequent questions that we get here is what kind of backpack, how do you pack your gear and all those things. Can you explain what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. It varies a bit per shoot, as you'd expect. If I'm going down to say, Cuba for a saltwater shoot, or I just got back from Swedish Lapland, so north of the Arctic Circle, very different. I'm a big fan of Pelican cases. The 1510 fits on most planes. I'm sure you have a bunch of them, Jake. I see you smiling.
It's got the new Air, the new 1535 Air.
That's the one I want. So you have to let me know what you think. But they're workhorses. I actually, for the first time, had TSA break a portion of my camera case, my Pelican case, coming back from Sweden. They broke the handle off, which didn't know was possible, but apparently they can do it. But they're great. I bring one usually checked on with me. I would never, if I can not do it, I would never check cameras. And then I will often check one with my checked luggage that has like an underwater housing or any kind of other camera equipment. But in terms of packs, I kind of have 3 that I rotate through. I have a Think Tank shoulder bag that I love that's been with me all over the place. It's easy if I'm going to be in a city and need to quickly access gear and also be able to...
Love it. I have like the 3-panel or like 3 tube for 3 lenses, but I can fit like 24-70 and an extra body, a flash, 7200. I love that bag.
They're amazing. You can fit so much into them. And especially, if you need to pull it around to the front and not have gear on your back for security, shoulder bags are easy.
It's like an inconspicuous bag, too. It doesn't scream, I'm a photographer and carrying $10,000 worth of crap.
Totally, which is so important. It's so important.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're like, I want everyone to see my pack because you want everyone to know that you're a photographer. Other times you're like, I'd rather be carrying something very inconspicuous because this is sketchy.
Totally. I want to look like a bum, or I want to look like a little backpacker. And I feel like the Pelican cases, I'm definitely one of those people who smatters mine with stickers. So it's such a good conversation starter, right? Yeah. In airports, I don't know how many people are like, hey, yeah, I know, I need to get one of those from you. I've got a spot for it.
We'll send you out one.
I would love that. But it's a killer conversation starter. You meet so many cool people by saying, hey, that's a fishing sticker. Do you fish? So it works out.
That's a fact. People ask me about it standing in security lines all the time.
It's great. Sure. It's really fun in the big international airports because then you're like, okay, I found my people. Out of all the bodies in this airport, we found a common soul. So it's nice.
I always like when I end up going from like Newark to Denver, Newark to Chicago, and it's just like it's all grumpy working professionals, and then it's like I get on that flight to Montana. People have their boots and their hats. Everyone's friendly, and
Newark is sketchy.
Newark's. I guess that's your closest airport, isn't it, Jess? Where you are?
I have one that's like about a half-hour away. It's small regional Allentown Airport, but for the most part, I fly out of Newark because it's the most affordable and they've got the most flights, and it's terrible.
Right. Oh yeah, I'm in there a couple times a year, and it's convenient, and I don't mind flying through it sometimes. But I don't know. I don't envy you that necessarily.
No.
So Jess Mac, what's been your how should I say this and be fair? What's been your favorite, location or your favorite shoot or favorite adventure?
It's a loaded question. I did a shoot.
That's why I hesitated.
Right? No, I appreciate it. I did a shoot probably, I think it was 3 summers ago for Costa Sunglasses down in French Polynesia. And we basically picked a group of folks and flew out to this little atoll called Anna for a week. And it was fantastic. We were out there with IndieFly, which is it's Oliver White's nonprofit. And he works on it with a couple of fantastic folks, and basically flew out and said, okay, could we develop a potential self-sustaining sport fishery on this little atoll and help the local people who are basically living a sustenance lifestyle, develop an industry that would help keep their young people home. Because all the kids were growing up on this little atoll and having to move to Tahiti, and Papeete and all these larger hub cities in the region just to have a job. So that was a really special trip to be able to go out there. Oliver White was on the trip, and I've always looked up to him as an angler and a businessman. And then to actually work with him and realize he's one of those rare people who is as cool in person as you hope he will be. I find that's often not the case. You meet some of these really charismatic people in person and you feel like a little kid being disappointed. At least I do. It's like, oh, my hero's not who I thought he was or she was. But it was great. We were out there. We basically ate raw bonefish and coconut milk 3 meals a day for a week and lived with the people and learned how to throw spears at coconuts and all this random stuff that was just
That's cool.
Brilliant. Yeah. So it was fun. It was nice to see an outdoor brand want to approach a product shoot like that because it was a much more editorial angle instead of just shooting product on models like down in the Keys. We actually put product on anglers and on these island locals and shot product and shot editorial stories. So it was a fun way to approach it. I'm hoping more brands will evolve to that mindset as well. We're getting there.
I think that's something, again, this is something that's, I guess, become sort of redundant on this show in that, from the hunting perspective, which you're tapping into now, coming from the fishing and fly fishing world specifically, it's something that, has certainly evolved and helped the hunting industry from a creative standpoint, look better, appear better, have an overall better character about it because the fly fishing world has had so much influence on the hunting world from that creative standpoint. Can you speak about that or maybe talk about why or what you're trying to do in the on the hunting side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be very honest. I'm pre-K level on the hunting side of things. I worked in-house with Orvis for a while up in Vermont and was their outdoor copywriter. So had a bit of experience into the wing shooting and waterfowl sides. That's kind of as much as they delve into hunting. But in terms of big game, I mean, I've gone out with the other Jake, my brother, a few times and just tagged along with the camera. But that's a big part of the reason I took the job at Onyx was to be able to come in. And I love it. It's my favorite thing in the world to come in and say, I know nothing, teach me. Because it's humbling, but it's also very liberating to be the newbie in the room and just sit and absorb everything. So it's been fascinating to see those parallels that you talk about between the fly fishing and the hunting industries. Because I feel like I'm not burned out, but I've been in kind of deep in the fly fishing industry for a while. And the hunting industry is such a cool source of fresh creative and fresh ways to approach things. So it's cool. I'm excited as a hunter to get out and actually fill the freezer a little bit this fall, but also to get out. I'm heading out with Onyx for a sage grouse hunt in eastern Montana here in a couple of weeks. Just go out with those guys and learn and shoot a bit, but also just I'm working, I'm shooting the camera, but also get out and hunt a bit.
Nice.
So it's fun overall. I love being the newbie in the room. I can speak to the creative side of it, kind of the creative marketing side, but in terms of the technical hunting side, I'm just like, guys, teach me. It's fantastic.
I think when you're confident with yourself, you have that liberated, openness about learning things new.
Mm-hmm.
And I can definitely understand when you get into a new world and you're around people that are doing new things, all you want to do is learn. And it just sort of stimulates you to do bigger and better things. Right.
Absolutely. It's fun. And I'll never leave behind the fishing side of things, but I really like the folks I've met so far in the hunting industry. So it's all good from this end. I'm excited to kind of dip my toes in further.
There's so many nuances that follow over from fly fishing. I mean, once you already you're comfortable, obviously as a photographer, once you understand how to just dive in and capture a story behind whatever's happening, I mean, that just travels and transcends right over into hunting too. And there's so many things besides just taking a picture of somebody pulling a bow back, taking a picture of somebody walking up on their game. There's so many different angles and little things that you'll pick up on the more that you go out, and that's the most fun things for me to photograph, just these little side things that happen besides obviously the scouting, the shooting, the field dressing, all the things that you would expect. So it's the same with fly fishing too, though. I mean, there's all the things that you would take pictures of: casting, catching a fish, tying a knot, all of those, but then all of the most interesting things happen in between. So it's the same.
Absolutely. Well, and you do such a good job of that with your photography, Jess. It's just, I'm always a fan of telling a story from the details. Because the obvious stuff, I mean, we all know the basics of what happened when you go out and fish for a day or you go out on an afternoon hunt. But it's the details that really set it apart from every other day, I guess.
Definitely.
No doubt about it. You want to bring up some Jess Max photos?
Yeah. All right.
Talk about some of the imagery that you've published.
Let's talk about this one. This would be the first primate photo we've had on the show.
Oh, nice. So this was actually during the trip in Peru that I talked about earlier. This is a woolly monkey down. We're in the Madre de Dios region of Peru, which if you think of Cusco, which people do when they think.
Hold on, let's catch up a bit. I'm breaking up a little.
Yep, let's catch it. Yep.
Oh,
it's freezing up just a hair.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
So it's a woolly monkey. Yes,
we got a woolly monkey. Yeah, woolly monkey down in Peru. We were actually down there on a stand-up paddleboard expedition. We were doing the first descents of a couple rivers that are Amazon River tributaries. So it was
paddleboarding on the Amazon River.
Paddleboarding on the Amazon River, yeah.
Like
so it was.
You dip your toes in, you might not get them back.
It was one of the things I asked the guys. So I was lucky down there. I was working with a couple of folks who were Peruvian whitewater athletes. So they're pros. They've been on these waters in kayaks before. They had never done it on stand-up paddleboards. And one of the first things I asked them, because I'm forever getting injured on shoots, I said, okay, so how much should I be worried? You know, if I fall into this water, like, should I be rushing back to the boat to try and get in, or can I kind of float along and shoot some pictures or hang out? And they're like, as long as you fall in and you're not actively bleeding, the odds are you're pretty good. So it's definitely, I mean, it's a region, it was very eye-opening to me because it's a region where, I mean, everything you read of, you know, there are snakes, there are anacondas, there are piranhas, there are spiders, we all were very humbled by it because everything's trying to eat you at some point or another. But at the same time with the group, it felt very safe because we had a lot of really savvy people on the team. And I was never too worried. I actually did get kind of wretchedly sick one day. And I have this memory of sitting under mosquito netting, pulled aside. We just would shore up the boats at night and kind of sleep like in these huts or sleep on the boards. And Jerry rigged some mosquito netting over the board. And I remember looking up through the mosquito netting, like in the midst of a fever, thinking, this is how all those explorers in Africa felt, you know, or in South America, all those stories we read about. I'm like, I finally get it now. But it was such a cool shoot. And we started off in the headwaters of these rivers, which is up in the cloud forest. I think about we're just over 11,000 feet. And those monkeys we saw as we were coming down into the Amazon River basin. This is a shot of the guys actually paddleboarding on the Madre de Dios. So it's interesting. The region is very well known in the news for illegal gold mining right now. You see a lot of the conflict in the area and also for cocaine. And so we would randomly run into, you know, fully tacked out patrols who were doing their job in unbelievable conditions. But the fire that you see there in the background is a illegal gold mining camp burning supplies before they move locations. So it was really an interesting photo to be able to get these three guys. The two on the left are Peruvian. The guy on the right is actually American. And just kind of show the scope of the issue there. It was really interesting.
That's really cool. I was just going to ask about that smoke, but you beat me to it. That's cool. What a great adventure that was. Did you figure out can I ask, and you don't have to answer this, what illness you came down with? Because I'm getting ready to go down there like Thursday.
Oh, right.
And I need some beta, Jess.
Totally. No, I never found out. Luckily, I guess. So it passed pretty quickly. I think if I'm creative, I can trace it back to some fruit I ate that I know I shouldn't have. So it's, you know, it's the typical rules of don't drink the water, don't eat certain foods. It's all the stuff, you know. I just was not being smart. But no, I didn't go on anti-malarials for it, which was nice. I'm just starting up a dosage now for a trip to Africa later this month. And it's reminding me how grateful I am when I cannot go on anti-malarials. So
I just started mine this morning as well.
You know how it goes. Yeah. So definitely bring all the DEET. Oh yeah, for sure. All the DEET. Yeah.
We have a question here from Joe. He wants to know, what's the worst thing that you've experienced doing your job, and what is the best experience you've had?
Oh, worst experience. There have been a lot. There have been a lot of really, really bad experiences and really good experiences. I think, and I never really want to go there. Being a female alone in a group of guys, there's always some interesting interactions. And I once had someone, I once had someone pull. No, but you can imagine, because you go on shoots like this, you can imagine how that gets awkward. When I was first starting, I went by Jess, which is what I normally go as, and I showed up to a couple shoots and people hadn't done their homework and assumed I was a guy. And so I'd show up and they'd be like, wait a minute, you're not Jess. So then I worked as Jessica for a while and I had to go back to Jess. But I actually had someone pull a visa in a foreign country. He had the pull to do it and basically say, hey, we're going to have a relationship or I'm pulling your visa and you have 48 hours to get out of the country. So I had 48 hours to get out of the country and luckily made it with the help of some friends who I still owe many, many drinks to. So there's good and bad to it. I certainly, beyond that, there's the expected tropical illnesses. I've had a shark come up, I don't think aggressively, and bite my underwater housing. I'll shoot with a big Aquatech imaging solution. It's like a big plastic box that a camera goes in, and was offshore and had a shark come up and just bump me and mouth the housing. The unfortunate part was it was day one of a week-long shoot where I then had to be in the water every subsequent day. So it was a good, like, okay, it's a job. At that point, you realize, like, if I was here on vacation, I would not go back in the water in this location. So yeah, it's always a learning experience. And I think best experience, Joe, there's so many. It's meeting all these cool people in cool places. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's not about the fish. It's not about the trophy, whatever. It's not about the glory of it, because there's really not a lot of glory to it. It's about just meeting cool people in cool places.
Nice.
And the experience. Hey, I want to talk about your underwater housing. I have an Aquatech myself, but
nice.
I have not traveled. I haven't traveled internationally with it yet. It's for the 1DX Mark II. How do you travel with that?
Absolutely. I have another one of those Pelican cases, and I put it in there. I break it all apart into the components and put it in there and just have fragile stickers plastered all over that thing. I do check it normally. And I haven't had any issues with it. So yeah, they're good. The worst issue I've had with that was coming through Mexico City on my way to Cuba once. Mexico City Customs threw a fit. And it was basically 3 hours of discussion and show them what it does. I keep a roll on my camera or on my phone now of underwater photos. So I can at least show people this is what this device does. And that's helped a lot. Just being able to visualize the purpose of it.
What was their issue? What was their issue with that? They didn't know what it was. They thought it was like a bong or something.
They thought it was a bong or some kind of drug smuggling something. I don't know. So I'm terribly suspicious. So they were very nice about it, but they were just unhappy with that piece of equipment. So it's all right. But overall, they're easy to travel with. They're awesome tools. I love them.
I feel like every time I finally get used to the TSA and I can expect what's going to happen, everything changes.
It does so often. It's amazing. And it varies so much place to place. You never know the mood of the people you'll get.
That's the key right there. It's like they need to find some consistency because they're different from one airline to the next or one person to the next. One person says you can do this, or one person's so really nice and they'll just, don't worry about it. Just take it on and we'll put it somewhere. We'll figure it out. And then the other person's like, no, you can't take that. No. I'm telling you, you cannot take that, Yeah. So
I've definitely reverted.
Consistency airlines.
We do. It would be such a nice thing. I've reverted to flashing I have a press pass now and then and just being like, hey, media, sorry. And I hate to be that person, but if you're on a job, you've got to do it sometimes.
I've had them say, I don't care to media passes.
Yeah, that's never fun. Yeah. You do what you can, I guess.
Sometimes they pull the power trip because, at the end of the day, you're in an airport, and if you start getting nasty with them or aggressive with them,
Right.
then all of a sudden here comes law enforcement and TSA. So you got to be really careful. And I was going to say that earlier when you were talking about, going through customs in Jordan and now Mexico City, wherever you are, it's like a smile and a great attitude will get you a long, long way. Even if it takes 10 hours to get through something like that, you're better off getting through that after 10 hours than not getting through it after 30 minutes.
Oh, it's so true. Just a smile and staying calm. I was coming back from Jordan, actually through Paris, through de Gaulle, and got pulled aside for additional screening, of course, coming from the Middle East. And it took about an hour, but there was another girl who got pulled aside with me, and she spent the hour bawling and and I get it. She was just very anxious and upset. And I got let go before she did, I think, just because it's like, all right, what's the worst that's going to happen? Really?
I mean, the alternative is you're a terrorist and you have a bomb. So, I mean, to comply is really a good thing.
Exactly.
It is. Yeah. And they're trained to read body language. I'm just reading a really good book now on the Marine Corps' Hunter Combat Program, where it's basically reading body language and being able to gauge people off that. And it's hugely helpful as a photographer, but also just as a traveler on kind of staying ahead of the curve a little bit for that. So
what's the name of that book? That sounds really interesting. And
I know. Let's write that down.
I'll have to, if you Google the Marine Corps Hunter Combat Program, it'll come up. It's actually in my bag for tomorrow. I don't have it in front of me. And I'll send it to you guys afterwards. It's an awesome book. It's short too. It's like an easy airplane read.
Perfect.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a good one.
They have the audio book. Maybe you could record it on audio and send it to me.
There we go. Should be required listening for anyone wanting to get into this industry, I think.
No doubt.
Now that you're going to be like a mind reading whiz, how do you think that that's going to help you? Like, how do you deal with directing models or the talent when you're on these commercial shoots, or even kind of just when you're doing documentary stuff, but you still have to get certain types of photos? How do you find, what's your best technique for helping to direct people without making them uncomfortable?
Oh, it's a really good question.
It's a great question.
Luckily enough, a lot of my shoots I'm working with anglers or outdoorsmen, and with them I can basically say, we'll sit down with a cup of coffee in the morning, and I can say, look, I've worked in fly shops, I've worked in camps, because we're usually in some foreign camp somewhere, and kind of give them the talk of, hey, I've been in your shoes, I get it, I'm not going to be a pain in the ass. Because and I'm sure you guys do as well, I hear horror stories from people saying, oh, this photographer came out and he was high maintenance and terrible to work with, and he made our guys' lives miserable for a week. So it's basically just mitigating that feeling and kind of giving them a talk of, hey, I get where you're coming from, here are my goals, and what do you think we can do to achieve those? Asking for feedback.
I think that's a really good point that anyone watching now or will be watching later should understand, is that, we're ambassadors to everyone else out there that's doing whatever we're doing. And I think that, again, going back to the good attitude and carrying yourself well as a professional and being patient with people and explaining yourself through communication as to what you're going to do, how you're going to direct this, what our goals are, go a long way in representing not only yourself, but, all photographers or filmmakers out there, because that is a complaint that you hear a lot about, like, man, that guy was a jerk or he was an asshole or whatever it was. And, it's unnecessary, because when the frustration sets in, is typically because people don't know what's going on. You only have a certain amount of time to get your shots in or get the job done. So, everyone's in a rush. It's intense, and anxiety arises, and boom.
Slow down. I always remind myself, no matter what kind of shoot I'm on, like, slow down, explain yourself, because I'm so visual and I'm already seeing, and everybody who's a photographer, you see what you want to happen, and sometimes I don't verbalize that, I think, as well as I can. So they're not mind readers, and I always tell myself to slow down, explain, because it's easier if everybody's on the same page and nice and kind. And I I hear that all the time. Oh, the last person who was here, the last person we worked with, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, it's having good attitude goes a long way in everything. Are we all frozen?
Oops,
Yeah, I think we're good. It got a little blurry there. I see us moving now. Yeah. No, I think
I was like, I didn't think I was that insightful.
You were so, it was amazing. No, it's so true. I was just in the shoot end of July in Swedish Lapland. And because you're so far north, the sun doesn't set. Or it sets for a few hours and you get dusk. And we were I was shooting a commercial project, and then Lapland or Sweden Tourism had a film crew there shooting me as I shot the project. So it was like this weird inception of way too many cameras in small boats. Your nice light, of course, is midnight or 2 a.m. And so everyone's very tired when you're shooting, and everyone's kind of, you're working, literally 22 or 24-hour days without a lot of rest in between, out in the middle of nowhere with biblical amounts of mosquitoes. And it was important to have those talks of like, okay, let's stop and have coffee and make sure we're all doing what we need to be doing, because otherwise people get tired and it just spirals pretty quick.
Yeah.
So
why is it that everywhere we decide we're going to go somewhere cool, it's completely inundated with mosquitoes?
Oh man.
Did we lose her? Are you still
There's
there?
a thing. I don't know what it is with me. Oh, I've still got you guys. Do you have me?
You're here. We can hear
All
your audio, but it keeps freezing every couple seconds for a minute here. Maybe we just need everything to catch back up. But yeah, the mosquitoes have been really bad everywhere this year.
It's been amazing. Yeah, I'm ready for fall and for the mosquitoes to go away, at least in our part of the world.
Let's talk about that. What do you do? What do you do to when you go somewhere tropical and insects, and particularly mosquitoes that host, different types of diseases, viruses, or whatever? What do you do to prevent as best you can from mosquito bites?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of the old-fashioned long pants, long sleeve shirt. It looks dumb, but tuck your pants into your socks if you have to. Just protection. And then DEET. DEET, obviously, you have to be careful with because it does not mix well with camera gear. It can kind of eat away at certain components. So it's toxic stuff. It's nasty stuff, but it works. On that trip to Peru, we were in the jungle for almost 2 weeks, and I think I came out with 6 mosquito bites. So it pays to actually take the effort to really mitigate the mosquitoes, but it's not a fun process at all.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the DEET too. I've got, I can't believe you used that. What if it touches your skin? I'm like, I'd rather put this and like die really slowly of whatever chemicals are in it than be dying of malaria or West Nile virus next week.
Totally. No, it's so true. And there's actually a couple, I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, permethrin.
Yeah, I know.
I think you've got it better than I do. You can wash your clothes in it and actually spray your clothes beforehand. And that's been a lifesaver. Again, it's toxic stuff, but it works. And I also travel with a little insect shield. It's basically like a bivy liner, kind of a sleeping bag liner. That's fantastic. Sleeping in random places where I want to keep bugs off, or random places where I feel like there are probably a lot of bugs on whatever surface I'm sleeping on. It's nice to be able to kind of nestle in that. When we were the night in Jordan where we had that big sandstorm, I actually ended up sleeping kind of outside in a little alcove with all the camp dogs. And so, it's like, who knows what's crawling around there. But it was definitely nice to just put bug spray on and be like, all right, we're good. So yeah, there's a lot of little steps you can take. It's not rocket science, but I think it just takes a bit of effort to like pack the bug spray, spray your clothes before you leave, that kind of thing.
Don't forget it kind of thing. I actually travel with a thermocell now and carry wafers and even thermocell capsules, and they work everywhere I've gone, from, the high country and wild sheep country to the jungles of South America. Thermocell works, and I always carry mine with me.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea.
I don't know if I don't know if it's legal to fly with the fuel canisters or not, but I do.
Oh yeah. Hey, if they don't catch it here. Now they know.
Yeah. They look like little hairspray bottles until they explode inside your luggage.
Yeah. Well, they are flammable because it burns. I guess it's
Right.
alcohol and it burns the wafer.
You know
But,
what DEET and thermocells do not make go away? Cockroaches.
Oh.
So remember that trip we went down to Louisiana, Jake, and we stayed in that one like plywood hut type thing? That was like the scariest bug encounter I ever had. The cockroaches were like this big, like as big as my head, and the lights went out, and all of a sudden you heard them. And I turned my cell phone on, and I'm like, Jake, there's cockroaches right next to my head. He's like, just got to go to sleep, Jess. I'm like, oh my God.
just deal with it. Just sleep.
So I have like the sheets up all around me. Like everything is tucked in. I was basically awake the whole night. Like mosquitoes buzzing around, I can handle. The idea of a 5-pound cockroach crawling on my head is not something I'm down with.
No.
I actually carry them.
Oh,
go ahead, Jess. No. You go first.
I'm that way with bats. I'm okay if I can hear them in the distance, but if they're like, they get in the tent or something, I just start thinking of all those childhood stories of like bats and disease and vampire bats. And, it just is not a good sound.
I actually have a mummy bag that doesn't have a zipper. It's a 50-degree mummy bag that I carry to, tropical environments. And I just get inside of it. So there's only one way in and one way out for bugs.
It's a good idea. Just cinch it up and you're good. Yeah.
Exactly.
Logistics are where it's at.
So let's talk about your future. What you got going on in the future? If you can talk about what you can, and don't if you can't, and where you're going with everything. Yeah,
it's an ever evolving adventure. I guess I'm looking at my pile of packed bags. This September, I'm home very few days. So I have my bags all packed for triage. I leave tomorrow morning early to go to California, actually for a cattle roundup on an old historic ranch for California tourism and then a UK magazine. Back here for a few days, then out on a sage grouse hunt with the Onyx crew, which I'm looking forward to.
That'd be fun.
It'll be fun. It's out in eastern Montana, so it's still kind of homey. Back for a few days, and then actually down to Kenya for a project, and then finally return in mid-October and hopefully sleep a little bit. So I'm looking forward to getting back here and doing some hunting, hopefully.
As soon as you do that, during your free time, you'll get a phone call. Hey, can you come do this job? And there goes your free time. Right?
Oh, it's the way it works.
Which is a good problem, though, right?
It's a good problem. The guys at Onyx right now are being really kind and just I get kind of a little eye roll, and it's like, okay, go do your thing. So they're being very obliging with that right now. But
that's cool that they allow you to be in-house plus sustain your freelance status as well.
Absolutely. And it was something, I've worked 10 years to build this thing. So it was one where I'm like, hey, I really want to work with you guys, but I'm not willing to give this side up. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they're willing to think outside the box, it's awesome. It makes it fun. So, we'll see. I'm looking at a couple of really interesting projects for early 19. Hopefully go back to Africa for a different shoot and see what happens. You know how it is. Like you just said, stuff pops up all of a sudden. It's like, hey, get your passport. Let's go. So we shall see.
Cool.
Have you done any of the trade shows on the hunting side? Like, do you go to SHOT Show or do you go to the ATA show, the Archery Trade Association?
I haven't. I'm hoping to get down to SHOT this year. I've always done ICAST, IFTD on the fishing side, and then several of the consumer shows. And would like to really, honestly, I just want to go to SHOT and wander around and absorb it all. It sounds like it's quite the show. So hopefully make it down there this year.
Well, if you do, we'll have to get together, and I've got a few friends at SHOT Show that I can introduce you to and sort of break the ice with you there.
Well, I'd love that. I think it's actually falls on my birthday this year, so who knows what would happen in that case in Vegas. We'll see. But yeah, hopefully see you down there.
So what you're leaving tomorrow. What kind of cameras do you shoot? What are your go-to cameras? What are your go-to lenses? That's something people always want to know about as well.
Definitely. I'm a Canon girl. So I stick with the 5D Mark IIIs. I still have my original 5D Mark II that sometimes comes along as a redundant backup. But it doesn't get out as much as it used to. And then lenses, kind of my workhorses, I have a 1740 and then a 7300. And I found, especially shooting from boats, that gives me a nice mix of range. The 1740 is great for tight, in the boat shots. And then 7300 it's a good all around lens. I'd rather shoot prime if I could, but traveling, I mean, you know how it is. You're limited with what you can bring. I did just add a 100mm macro, which I'm loving for, fish details. I got some fun shots of grayling dorsal fins in Sweden.
Such a fun lens.
It's such a fun lens. I fell in love with that lens really hard. And then for portraits, it's awesome.
You can do so much with that. I do a lot of, that lens comes out for weddings for a lot for me. So it's like I get really cool detailed jewelry shots. Yeah. If it's super sunny, I'll break it out for some telephoto portraits. Like it just does everything. I love it.
It's great.
I actually found that lens to be very useful in the video side of things as well. Turning getting those macro shots are really interesting when you shoot in 4K video as well. I mean, I put one on a red and shoot it all the time. It's pretty cool.
Oh, I bet that's awesome. Nice.
It is. Yeah. It goes in and out of the depth of field is so thin, it goes in and out of focus, but I think that's sort of an accepted thing. I think at one time it was a sort of a mistake and an amateurish looking detail in video work, but I think it's all part of the art and creativity now. So I love shooting that lens.
Absolutely. And it's fun. I mean, to that point when you can, oh, you guys are frozen a bit. Can you hear me?
Yep.
We're good. All right.
Yep.
Perfect. Good. When you can play with that kind of creativity a little bit. I did a series on Instagram this past winter that people loved. That was kind of breaking the rules of photography. Putting your horizon dead center and putting an object dead center. And it's fun to be able, once you know the rules, as the saying goes, you can break them. But I think there are times creatively where it's like, hey, if it's a little bit out of focus or you're a little blurred or something, you can play with it. It can be really an interesting thing at times.
That's something we talk about all the time, is learning the rules first, because we have a lot of, aspiring young photographers that watch the show or come to our social media platforms, just like you do, I'm sure. And that's one of the things that, we talk about is understand the rules first so that you know how to break the rules, so that it's, you break the rules accordingly and you develop better creativity that way.
Definitely.
Oh, it's so true. Yep. Oh, go ahead, Jess.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so let's let everybody know where they can find how to contact you and check out your portfolios and keep up with what you're doing.
Absolutely. My website is just Jess McGlothlin Media, and the last name's a bear, but you'll see it in the title of this episode, I'm sure. And then Instagram is just Jess_McGlothlin_media. And please, as Jake was just saying, I do get quite a lot of people reaching out with questions or with, hey, what do you pack? Or how do you deal with visa on arrival in this country? So send questions in. I always love working with folks who are just excited and getting into the industry and still have that energy. I think those of us who do this day in and day out can get, at least I know I can, get a little jaded at times and just be like, oh, it's another shoot. So yeah, it's to those of you just starting out, keep trucking along and get creative with it and stay creative with it, because that's really where the magic happens.
Yeah, that's great to be able to answer questions and reply to people's comments and things like that. I think there's so many people who, along with being jaded, just don't want to or have the time to reply to people. And I think that that's really important and brings you back down to earth. Like, we're not brain surgeons, we're photographers and videographers. And it's great to be able to help everybody understand how we got to where we're going, or how we got to where we are and where we're going. And it's just nice to be able to interact with everybody. And I think that makes everybody, it's a part of the good attitude that we were talking about before. So definitely hit Jess's social media up. Following her adventures is awesome. She's always someplace new and she puts up great content. It's really interesting stuff. So definitely follow her.
You got any Jess Mac? Do you have any advice for young photographers out there in terms of how to get into the business? Because that's another thing we always get asked. What would you tell them?
I'd say just honestly get out and shoot. I think the biggest thing emerging professionals can do is to develop their own style. The ultimate goal is someone to be flipping through a magazine and see your photo and go, oh, I know who shot that, without even looking at the credit. So find out how you like to shoot. Definitely look at other shooters' work, see what you like, see what you don't like, but don't try and copy someone else. Find the way you like to do it and run with it. And just get out there and shoot. It can be you and your buddies out hunting this fall. It can be you and your buddies out fishing. It can be your dog playing in the yard. Just shoot and play with it. And learn how to flip the camera off automatic. Definitely get creative with your settings and see what works and what doesn't in different situations.
Yep,
Awesome.
I agree 100%. Well, Jess, thank you so much for coming on the show. Your work is inspiring. It's beautiful. It's very creative, and your life of adventure does all those things too. And we really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing what you come up with in the future.
Well, hey, thanks so much for having me on, you guys. It's been really fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for spending the morning with us, and we look forward to seeing what you're going to pop out next. And hopefully you and I will get together sometime this fall and work together, which will be a lot of fun. So thanks again. We just really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
awesome.
let's stay in touch. If you get to SHOT Show, let's get together and I'll sing happy birthday to you.
Uh-oh, all right. Well, I'd love it. We'll have to meet up in person. Yeah.
For sure.
Meet up in person one of these days, for sure.
For sure.
So,
all right.
Awesome.
Well,
thanks, guys.
We'll see you next time.
All right. Take care.
All right. So winding down, like we said, make sure you go check out Jess's social media platforms. She's got tons of great, interesting stuff. And she travels everywhere. So it's nice to see just like not the usual outdoor stuff we see a lot of from the West and things like that. She's all over the place. It's really, really cool. And then definitely check out our YouTube channel. So it's Outdoor Cameraman Experience. I'm sorry, youtube.com/Outdoor Cameraman Experience. This will be up shortly, and to catch the other episodes. And what else? Anything else left, Jake?
Well, I was just going to say I'm looking forward to seeing Jess tap into the hunting industry to see, what she comes up with there. It's nice to see someone coming over from fly fishing into the hunting world, which we talk about all the time. So
yeah, it'd be good to get a fresh perspective.
Yeah, she has. When you go look at her content, she has her content is really adventurous. So, like Jess Delo said, if you get a chance, get over to Jess McGlothlin's pages and look at her stuff. She's very inspiring.
Yep. Well, let's see. Do we have a show next week?
We do not. I'm headed to South America the day after tomorrow, so I'm going to be gone for a couple weeks, but I will stay in touch.
Bleeding in the water. No bleeding in the water.
No, and no, I'm taking malaria preventative as we speak, and I'm taking my Thermacell and DEET and all those things Jess just talked about.
The mummy bag.
But yeah, supposedly we have we'll be deep in the mountain jungle of Bolivia, but supposedly
I will be deep in Pennsylvania. I'll put up a tutorial on YouTube to keep up with this next week. But yeah, you'll be you're way gone.
Yeah, but the one of the guys that I'm working with down there said that they have a Wi-Fi device that actually provides pretty good Wi-Fi service, and I asked him if it would be possible for me to use that for a show or at least some sort of live stream or something from there. So we'll stay in touch, and if that's possible, then we'll try to make that a reality. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be. All right. Well, then that is that, and I will catch you when you're back from your next adventure, Jake.
All right, Jess. Take care. Good seeing you. Bye.